Welcome to the Athena 40 podcast, Conversations with Women from the MENA region. This series is in partnership with NOMA Women Advancement Establishment, a United Arab Emirates-based organization founded on the vision of an equitable world for women. In this series, we are hosting exceptional women from the Middle East and North Africa. They are thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and policymakers. And I am your host, Elizabeth Filippouli, founder of Athena 40, an international platform connecting women leaders. In today's episode, I'm delighted to welcome Diana Hamade.
By all means, Elizabeth, it's lovely to speak to you today. My name is Diana Hamade. I am a lawyer, a founder of my own law firm in Dubai called Diana Hamade Attorneys at Law. I happen to be one of the few women in the UAE who has her own law firm. I set up my own law firm almost 14 years ago. I am a member of the Arab Regional Forum at the IBA. I'm one of the few members in the Middle East of the International Academy of Family Lawyers. I am also a member of STEP, which is the Society of Trust and Estate Practitioners Worldwide. And I'm glad to say also that I am a member of the UAE, which is the Emirates Association for Lawyers and Legal Consultants. And I'm proud to say that I have just managed to set up with one of my close friends, the International Relations Committee of the Emirates Association for Lawyers, which is a new thing in the UAE.
I like to always go back and try to understand what was it, that shaped what they became and how they became so successful in life. So take us back to your teens, to your perhaps university studies. Why did you decide to study law, and what motivated you to become a lawyer?
Being a daughter of a lawyer would not necessarily make you want to study law. You've seen your dad, as I may always call him, God bless his soul. He's passed away some time ago. He was buried in books while still alive. I would just go to his office in the house and he would always have books all over the place in every part of the house. And it was always overwhelming to see someone who has to read so many books. And the minute you would say, "Oh, you will make a great lawyer, Dan," and I would say, No, I'm not studying law. I don't want to be a lawyer. So that was always the debate at home, whether, the law is something for me. And to be honest, I finished high school and I got very good grades, and I found him immediately registering me in law school. And that was in the UAE. And we only had one university those days. It was the UAE University in Al Ain. And it had a very distinguished school for law and Sharia. And at that time, Sharia and law had to be hand in hand. And for me, studying Sharia was a very overwhelming thought. But I did go to law school in the UAE. I studied Sharia and law. And the minute I graduated, and I asked him if I could pursue my dream to become a TV anchor, but I wanted to study mass communication. That was the idea for me. He said, just go do your master's in law, and when you come back, we'll talk. And I went and I did my LLM in the UK. So I went to the UCL for my diploma in legal studies, and then I went to Scotland because it was Roman law. He was very particular about the things that he made me study. So in a way, he wanted me to have the full, the full law knowledge from Anglo-Saxon all the way to Roman, all the way to civil law, all the way to Sharia. And that was the key for, I guess, a successful lawyer somehow, in his opinion. And in fact, that's what groomed me into the lawyer I am.
Your father sounds such an incredible figure when it comes to the way that he wanted your thinking to be positioned in the world, but also, in your profession, in your industry. He sounds, God bless his soul, that he was someone who was wanted to be things understood from within. So not work, on the surface, not work, superficially. It was about acquiring not only knowledge, but wisdom.
Literally, in the practice of law, everybody asks you, what did you study at law school? Did you actually study the law? I mean, the law, especially for us in a civil code country, the laws are literally books of thousands of provisions. Who would ever know the number of a provision of law? How would you ever study the civil code that has almost more than 4,000 provisions? The fact that you study at law school, the way of thinking, the way of reasoning your argument, which was always fascinating. Nobody will actually teach you at law school what is a provision of law, because nobody will ever remember it. But you would learn how to use that provision in a context, in a case, and that's where the training comes in. So when my daughter finished school and I said, do you want to ever be a lawyer? She said, oh, I like the way you reason things. I like the way you draft things in a way where you want to convince the other. And she went to law school, but she didn't want to do what I wanted to do. So she chose to do something else. So this is where the thinking of that you study law and you become a lawyer is not fair for the law. Because you study law, you can become an in-house counsel, you can become an academic, you can become an attorney, you can go to court or go to ADR nowadays, you can become an arbitration counsel. There's so much to do with a law degree. Just don't limit yourself to the idea that you'll have to appear at court before a judge. I chose it. My daughter did not find it amusing. So this is where now I can see that to study law gives you something of an edge to stand up for yourself sometimes and make an argument, defend yourself in a way where people can't even think of. But this is what the law gives you. This is what it enriches in you. And that's why I appreciate about the whole fact that I did study law.
I think that I am detecting some philosophical touches there.
Yes.
Philosophy is about, deeper thinking, about arguments, about trying to find answers to such a multitude of questions, and not necessarily, arriving at answers which are set in stone, but we are arriving in further questions, and then hopefully we're arriving, into solutions. Has philosophy played a role in your thinking?
Well, I was actually thinking of telling you this part of me when you asked me about the books I like to read. Well, I love philosophy. Like my favorite book would be Rumi, would be the 40 Rules of Love. There is so much that we need to know about the inners of us rather than what is out there for everyone. There is so much in asking questions and trying to find answers on our own. I love philosophy. It's just, for me, the way to get out of the norm and think beyond. And that's what gives us what we need, what empowers our core, what gives us the way to, a backbone, stand up for ourselves, because we know that we are meant here for a bigger reason than what we think.
So take us back again to your journey. You are, 22 when you complete your degrees?
Indeed. I was 21 when I did my LLB. I was 22, almost 23 when I did my master's and got back to Dubai.
What happens next?
What happens next is quite the unexpected. So the first thing I did immediately after I came back, my father immediately arranged for me to get my internship in order to start qualifying. There is a big step after you finish law school to qualify to become an attorney. So if you're in the US, you'll have to think of the bar exam. If you're in the UK, you'll have to think of your LPC. There's a lot to qualify. If you're in our countries, you'll have to think of how to become a stagiaire, to do your stage. So it's a multitude of jurisdictions that have their own way to qualify. So I got a great internship with Chadbourne Parker and Afridi. At those days was one of the first law firms that was in Dubai. Then I got another internship with Clifford Chance, another international law firm. And then things did not go the way I thought. So I lost my sister, who was a year and a half younger than me. It was just the unexpected that happened. And in a way, I got to a standstill in my life. My father passed away 3 years later, and it was too dramatic, too drastic. And I thought my life was finished. I thought at that moment, I didn't really need to do anything more. And I focused maybe more on my marriage, and I wanted to make something out of it. So I got my children, and I was blessed to have 2 beautiful kids that, just made me feel that I was there for a reason. I still had to be there for them. But it was so amazing. Majid was 3 years old, and I dropped him to school one day. It was actually nursery, not school. He was really little, and he had his bag on his backpack. And I said, "Do you want me to take you to the door?" He said, "No, Mom, I'm fine." And I said, "What do I do now?" When you're speaking loudly to yourself, what do I do next? Where do I go now? My both kids are at school. What am I there for? And he said, "Go to work." And I immediately, the philosopher in me, I immediately thought that was a message. And I went to, at that time, the Chamber of Commerce in Dubai, and I said, "Would you like to take someone like me for a couple of hours a day? I'll just do anything. I'll help you in your legal department." And I got a job. With almost 10 years of nothing on my CV, that was like the impossible mission. And it happened. I got a job. And that was the first step in a life of a career that I only dreamt of, and I thought that will never come true. And from there, the journey diverged completely. It was just another journey of career achievements and things that I was so devoted to the law, because I believe that the law saved my life, gave me a reason to be.
How many women in the UAE are founders of their own law firms? And how many women lawyers in Dubai appear before the courts? And how many women judges?
So far, we are almost 4 women who are founders of their own law firms, and they continue to manage their own law firms, against almost 800 women lawyers who are registered as lawyers, as practitioners in the UAE. So that is roughly a very, very little number compared to the number of women who work for firms or are just working I don't know, like if I may say work for firms, but they are attorneys who are registered, but they work within a firm. Judges, I'm proud to say that we have already 4 judges, women judges in Dubai courts. At the time I started as an attorney, when I was registered as an attorney and I appeared before the courts in Dubai, there was not a single woman. That was almost 14 years ago, 13 years ago. And since then, and almost probably 10 years ago, we started with 1 judge, 1 woman judge, and now we have 4. I was told actually that they have become almost 5 or 6, but I'm appearing currently before 4 women judges who are so amazing. They really handle a whole hearing from first to end, from without interruption. They put their heads, their foot down, and they make a hearing go without a breath. And I'm so like, I just look at them and I'm like, amazing. They're young women. So there is so much that is happening for women in the UAE. And I'm so proud of what they have achieved so far in the judicial path. They've been wonderful, and the UAE is very supportive. The government, the judicial authority is very supportive of women.
You mentioned before about Sharia law. And because our podcasts are having also international audiences, and not everyone is familiar with the difference, would you enlighten us a bit?
What does Sharia mean? Sharia is the jurisprudence of Islam. The Sharia is not a law. Sharia is a jurisprudence of law. So when you think of the UAE law, you would think of a judge who has a code before him, a civil code, a commercial code, a penal code, but at the same time, he is in a way looking at the Sharia as a source of his law. So if there is a conflict between Sharia and law, he would have to look at the provision of the law and make sure that he does have the discretion to make the provision of law prevail. Because remember, Sharia is a schools of thought. Besides having the Quran, besides having the sayings of our Prophet, we have schools for Sharia, which are the sects of Islam, the schools of thought that we had. This is where the Sharia becomes quite, if I may say, discretionary. And this is where the judges will have always to balance their Sharia intake in the law. Sharia is nothing to fear. On the contrary, Sharia is, as I see it, it's words of God that just get people to do the better thing. What comes into the law of Sharia is what we have in the jurisprudence of the schools of thought. And this is where there is a debate, but it doesn't mean at all that having Sharia part of your law is a scary thing. On the contrary, Sharia on its own would have had the ability to evolve better than a law. So imagine that because you studied Sharia, then you were literally brought into a practice of law that required Sharia. And this is where the family law became almost up to 60% of my practice. Although I started with commercial and corporate, then I found myself, and litigation, of course, in those, and then I found myself that I was much more needed in family law, and especially in succession planning. Succession planning is where you have people who would have to mainly either have plans for their succession or hit by death, and they will have to be subject to the laws in the land where their heirs will have to share sometimes huge businesses that would put them at risk of losing the business. So this is where the evolvement of the whole UAE has come in place. And I'm proud to say that I was part of the expats of non-Muslims in the UAE asking for their own wills at the DIFC, which the DIFC is a free zone in the UAE that applies you English law. So I was one of the drafters of the law who actually urged the UAE to give the non-Muslims in the UAE the ability to have their wills, so they are not subject to the Sharia law that would restrict them with certain inheritance laws that they should have not been subjected to. And now I am one of the will drafters of the DIFC, and I register wills for people and I help them in their succession planning. And I'm proud to say that people think of me as, you know, the change maker, who they sometimes would come and say, "You're an angel, you just like came from God to us." And I laugh and I say, you don't need an angel to do that. All you need is someone who knows the law and who can actually ask for the right thing. And I'm happy to say that It is now part of our judicial system, and the non-Muslims in the UAE have their ability to have their own wills and apply it in the DIFC courts through the probate court.
If I may, I will add something here that beyond the law, what is very important is this values-based thinking. So I'm sure that you come across this in what you do on a daily basis, especially when it comes to families, especially when it comes to succession. It is so important to have a compass of values. And every family, as every individual, set their own sets of values, the way they see them, the way they approach the world. So this systemic approach towards values as a way of being, as a way of operating, I would think is very, very important for not only a lawyer, but for the entire industry.
Indeed, I have to say that the UAE has making great steps in managing the family businesses, inheritance laws, and their ability to have an independent way of doing it away from the laws that are in place. And there has been great steps of having the waqf back, which the waqf is almost like a trust in the West. And then we also have now a law in Dubai that is available now for family businesses to have their own proprietorship contracts, where they can manage their internal family businesses structures and boards, and which is a brilliant thing. Family businesses in the Gulf, in the GCC, are almost responsible for 85% of the economy. So imagine if you have two generations of the family businesses and then have them not there anymore. All you need now is to make sure that these families continue to be with the same ability, especially with their assets. This is a critical thing, and I'm happy to say that the UAE is taking the precedence in this, and they're taking really big steps towards doing that.
Let's get back to your career, Diana. And you mentioned before that it's only 4 of you have launched, founded their own law firms. Do you come across stereotyping? I mean, one can, feel, even listening, hearing your voice and the way you communicate your messaging, that you are a professional of passion, focus, mission, determination. You never take no for an answer. But what I have found is that we are being shaped through tragedies, and you had clearly your share of those in your family, and also setbacks. So how do you deal with setbacks on a professional level, if you ever have any, and how do you handle stereotyping?
Stereotyping comes all the way, in all shapes, in all, ways. It's funny to say that, but I was working as a counsel for Herbert Smith, which is one of the international law firms, at the beginnings of my, of my career. And I was really surprised to meet at that time women lawyers who are, from the West. So they're British, they're Americans, and at the meetings that we had, especially even with the International Bar Association sometimes. So that was my first encounter with the international community of lawyers worldwide. And I would hear women partners in law firms saying how much they have to work so hard to become a partner. There is so much to change in a man's view of a woman. And don't tell me that is relevant to where they come from, their upbringing. In a way, it's instilled in a man until further notice. Until we, this generation of women, teach our boys that your sister is just like you and you are just like your sister. There is no difference between you and her, or your classmate, or your friend at the university. The fact that she's a woman does not make any difference. She is just as good as you are, and even better. You'll have to respect what she does, what she has achieved. It's a way of thinking. It's the way we bring up our children today to stand up for women. It's the men that will have to make the women more visible. And I have to say, I swear to you, when we graduated from law school at the UAE University, the university was like, in public relations, you would have like almost like 500 students. At the School of Economics, you would have like, I don't know, 1,000 students. At the law school, because Sharia and law, we were only 6 students that we graduated. And I still remember one of our scholars, and he was one of the best scholars in Islam. He wrote actually the encyclopedia of Sharia at that time. And he was graduating us. He was like the master of the ceremony at that time, and he was giving the speech. And then he said, "Oh, you girls, I don't know what you are gonna do to the world when you finish university. Like today is, I'm celebrating with you today, your graduation, but I'm sure you're gonna do more harm to the world than any good." And we were like, "What are you saying? We are graduating from one of the top universities in Sharia and law, and you are telling us that?" And he laughed and he said, "In Arabic, the 2 words that you use for a woman as a judge is qadiya, and as a government officer is a na'iba. And both words in Arabic mean very, very drastic things. Qadiya is like, the final hit, like something that if you get it, it's the end of things. And then na'iba is a musiba, which is a very sad thing happening. So the 2 words in Arabic, as the minute you put a feminine side to it, it becomes the drastic thing. So he was like, "Oh, what do I expect from you but the worst to be done to earth?" And we were laughing. And you know what? That made us stronger. And that made us understand that what we're gonna come across is a big challenge, and it will require a lot more from us to be out there than many more of our generation. So I think that his words were more encouraging than he tried to set us back. And it goes on. Until today, I still meet men who look at me and say, "Are you sure you wanted to be a lawyer? Like, look at you, Diane. I mean, you've done great things, but a woman lawyer is..." And I look at them, especially when they're coming to become clients. They're like, "Oh, women lawyers." And I say, "Why are you coming then to see me?" And they would say immediately, "Because you have to prove yourself, because you're gonna do triple the effort that a man lawyer will do here. And we know that you wanna win because you're a woman." So that thing in us made us, like kind of more trustworthy for a lot of our clients. It's funny, but it worked for us, not against us. And I'm happy to say that this is how it's been. Despite the words, despite the discouragement, despite even our own family would just say, "Why are you working so hard? What do you need it for? Just, stay at home, mom. You're lovely. You're doing a great job." It makes you want to do it even better.
What is your biggest motivator?
The doubt that people have in us. I want to completely erase it, take it out of their heads. I want them to know that we can do what we promised to do, regardless. I mean, a lot of people say, "Oh, so you didn't win a case. Oh, you just..." Okay, I'm not saying that I win every case, but I would have to say that I work so hard to make sure that I win it. Maybe unlike some other lawyers, they don't have to be men or women, but not everybody is driven to, mark that as a success, because I don't really see that they're motivated to do it, but I'm motivated to do it. Women like me are motivated to do it because we are always threatened by the fact that people doubted us, and their doubts may have been, in a way valid. And I don't want that. I don't want anyone to doubt a woman and ever have their doubts validated.
The whole purpose of these conversations is to inspire the younger generation and to motivate younger women and to make them more fearless, like you are. So one thing is that when a young woman is around the table, which, the majority around the table are men, and she gets a comment like the one you mentioned before, why don't you do the photocopies for us, or get us some coffee please, or they get intimidated. This is because they still lack the confidence to stand up for themselves. That is barrier number one, and I would like us to visit it a bit. And barrier number two is the fact that perhaps some women are not motivated enough. Perhaps you and me were blessed with families and parents that nurtured this idea of, success, mission, do things and be proud of what you will achieve in life. How can we motivate younger women? You are a role model, so tell us.
I'm just very proud to see myself as a role model. I have to say, I have an Instagram and I have a couple of social. I'm on Twitter, I'm on LinkedIn, and when some young women write to me and say, "You're a role model," I feel like I'm blessed with that, because if I can be to those women a motivator and a woman that can just take them by their hand to show them that there is nothing impossible and nothing should fear you, should scare you, nothing should set you back, I would really feel that this is what I was brought to this life for. Indeed. I would just stand up every day before the mirror and say, if I go today to this judge and he asks me in a very like a strong way or harsh way to change the way I say things, or what would be my first answer? I would prepare myself for every situation. I would, before going to sleep, prep myself in my head. If I get into any situation, how would I react? And that was my way. The next morning, whatever I had to deal with, I was in a way prepared. And I swear to God, every night before I go to sleep, I would prep myself for such situations. What if I'm insulted before a whole courtroom? How would I react? What would I say? Please, for every woman out there, you will be, in a way or another, subject to such situations. You will be coming across such people. Don't ever let them get the best out of you. Stand up for yourself. Learn in your head to say the right thing at the right time. Prep yourself. There's no harm in preparing yourself for situations. I think this has been my hidden secret, and now I'm sharing it with everyone. I imagine the worst case scenarios, and I'm always ready. So this has been my lifesaver so far. What motivates me? As I told you, the fact that people doubt me. It is my best motivator. The more they doubt that I'm going to be able to do it, the more I want to prove that I am able to do it. And that's how you become yourself. And trust me, their doubts will never get anything out. For you, this is going to be a motivation. Use it as a motivation.
I will share with you that I have the 3D rule, which kind of, has always guided the way I operate with Global Thinkers Forum and our work. It is discipline, determination, and dignity. And if you have, I think, that combination of those 3 Ds, you are unbeatable.
Yes, I agree. I can't just say that I do agree. And dignity is what makes us prevail, because we are dignified and we are people of dignity. Women have a very, very strong dignity. The fact that we are daughters of these men, sisters of men, And then we become wives sometimes of men, not necessarily all the time, and mothers sometimes of men, makes us very dignified. And not because of our relationship with men throughout our lives. It's the fact that we are the women on the other side. That keeps us with something very special. And this is where we have to use it to make our lives better and keep it. Keep your dignity. Because without it, you will lose a lot. Be proud of you. Just say, I'm proud of me. The minute you say, I'm proud of me, you beat everything around you that may be obstacles, that you may even think sometimes of obstacles, and they're not really obstacles.
This idea or misconception that when women spend a bit, of time and how we look, how we put our makeup on, how we dress, it's something that kind of undermines our credibility.
Exactly. I thought about it and I found it to be quite offensive, to be honest. So the minute you think of a woman who is well dressed and she looks, nice, and you immediately think that she's not really professional enough, she's not doing a good job just because she looks nice. So like she spent time on looking nice, that would disqualify her as a professional, which is not true. That is why I chose for my column in Villa 88, which is a magazine published in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi, by a lovely Emirati woman in Abu Dhabi, who chose to showcase Emirati women in a magazine that is very selectively distributed. It was just a great idea. She came to me and she said, I want you to write about the law in a magazine. And I said, what? A luxury magazine? Like a magazine with all these beautiful women doing amazing stuff in life? And I said, nobody really wants to read law. And she said, no, I think we don't read law enough. That's why we get into trouble. And you have to bear in mind, we are in a very Middle Eastern society where the minute you come to a lawyer's office, then you have a problem. And it's a stigma in your society. Why is this woman seeking lawyers' help and she has a problem? And you don't want to be that woman. So I thought I'll educate women on what to do in certain ways and certain situations in their lives. I wrote about everything that comes to your mind, from plastic surgeries to shopping online, to social status, to whatever women would actually question themselves on and not dare to go to see a lawyer, and would have a lawyer's advice right in front of them. So one of them was called, You Got Served. Like when you get a service of a court case, that would be like the end of the fearful moment. And some women react in such a drastic way that would actually hurt them. So I was surprised when this column was published and the calls I got from women telling me, oh my God, Diana, I wish you told me before I did that. Now I'm in trouble. And I'm like, you know what? Don't be scared of contacting a lawyer when you need a lawyer. This is not something you should be judged on. At the same time, do not be scared of looking your best, because the law does not have to disengage from you being a stylish woman. It's part of your life. And for me, I would always encourage women to look their best at any time. It doesn't have to be at dinner or even when you're going to work in the morning. Look your best. Spending 2 minutes, wearing your makeup before you go into the office will actually boost your self-confidence, and that would get you to become the person you want to be. So don't let them haunt you with these old thoughts of, you have to be really looking like not yourself in order to become a professional or be seen as one. That is all trying to put women down. And I'm so proud of my Legally Stylish book. And I see it as my contribution to women empowerment in the strongest way possible.
Is it only in Arabic or does it come in English as well?
It's actually in English. The magazine is in English. So Villa 88 magazine, if you Google it, it's a magazine issued in English, published in English. And that was mainly for a generation of women now that do, in a way, read English more than they read Arabic, with all my love and respect to Arabic language.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that with us. Let's change the subject a bit and talk about books.
Yes.
Is there any book which you have read recently, or I mean in general, and changed your perspectives about life? I know you mentioned before the 40 Rules of Love, which is one of my favorite books. What other books have you read and you would recommend that other women read to kind of generate a shift, a positive shift in our mindsets?
So I was brought up with Gibran. Khalil Gibran was a favorite in our home. My dad made us read Gibran all the time. It was something of a mind and heart feeding that he always felt necessary for us to have. When you're brought up with the likes of Gibran, nothing would ever be, anything better to read. But I have to say, I read the 40 Rules of Love in 3 languages. I read it in English, French, and Arabic, and I loved it in every language. Now, one of my favorites remains, and to me, Jane Austen is the woman I would read for over and over and over again, and I would never get bored with a word of Pride and Prejudice. It's just something about the way she writes, the way she makes you feel about every word. I know she's very old dated, but I still love her books. I think it's a duty of a woman to encourage other women. I don't think we are there for no cause. I would love to see every girl becoming at least herself's lawyer, knowing how to stand up for herself, learning the law, not because she wants to get a job, but because the law will give her the way to become a person who can stand up for herself and others. That's what I see the value of the law. Not everybody has to study law, of course, but there is something about studying law. And I believe that maybe I am there for that reason.
Well, no wonder why your name is Diana, which is in Roman goddess was and Greek goddess Artemis was the goddess of hunting.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's one of the names, I don't know how to say it, the name's blessings. In a way, I had this very weird name for my time, for my age. When I was born, everybody thought, where did her mother get that name from? And it was a book that was called, it was a novel, an English novel called Diana of the Crossways. And then, of course, with the Lady Diana becoming the Lady Diana Spencer, my name got like to become the name. And it is a goddess of hunting. And I don't know really what I got from that, but I know for a fact that there is so much more to us being in this world, in this life, than what we think of sometimes. This is only to dream, and your dreams would come true. Just dream more. Dream more. Honestly, give yourself that luxury. Dream of something. Say, I'm going to do it. And somehow you will do it. Because our dreams are the way that we go forward in life.
And on that very powerful quote, I would like to thank you, Diana, for a fascinating conversation. I thoroughly enjoyed meeting you, and I thoroughly enjoyed the opportunity to hear your thoughts, your dreams, your achievements, and what you are as a human being.
I am so glad to have met you, Elizabeth. I think what you have done with your Global Thinkers Forum is outstanding. This is what women should do for other women, should do for the youth in general. And I salute you. And I believe that women like yourself, like myself, like many other women in the world, are the drive for others. And I believe that we should just continue to do what we're doing. And for everyone else, please do not fear what they make you believe that is fearful. Just keep doing what you're doing. Do more. Work harder. And you will never be disappointed.
Thank you for listening to the Athena 40 podcast, Conversations with Women from the MENA region, brought to you in partnership with NAMA Women Advancement Establishment. If you want to get in touch with us, please email us on info@athena40.org. That is info@athena40.org. For NAMA's work, please visit www.namawomen.ae. Keep well, stay inspired and motivated.